Hi guys, welcome back, and this time around I'm bringing you a review which is going to focus mainly, well, it's going to focus solely on XSL, a brand that last year made some noise for itself when they launched the original X1. This is not the original X1, this is actually the latest version, the LM version, the Mark IV version. And it made noise, why? Because it was using, and it uses the same driver as the famous Dark Magician, which I've got over there. Well, they gave it their own twist, and that own touch was then accepted by some, not accepted by others, and thus the reason why we had the original, then the Mark II, the Mark III, and then the Mark IV, which is what we have here, which has got adjustable or interchangeable nozzles, providing basically the tunings that the other versions could offer. Besides the X1, we have here the X500, which is a 1+4 hybrid. It's been out for a while as well, much like the X1. And this particular X500 is, let's say, a second gen. The first gen had a little bit, way too much treble. And so they did a second version of it, let's put it that way, a retune of it, which is the one that I have here. This goes, well, I'll get to the prices just now. Well, that's the 1+4. Then they've got as well the X600, which is this IEM here, which is a 1+1. The X600 has got some touches of the revised version here of the X500. But anyway, we've got this 1+1, and then we've got now, recently they launched the X300, which is again a 1+1, but with a different style of tuning. The tuning of the well, let me just tell you quickly the prices. The price for the X300 is roughly $45. This is about $60, this is about $115, and this is about $65 as well. The tuning of the X300, the 1+1, is a pronounced V tuning, loads of bass, a little bit of a recessed mids, and then, you know, upper mids and treble, a little bit of an emphasis on that as well. But funny enough, that, you know, although it's emphasized and we got this major gain both on the bass and on the mid section, it actually does come across as a fun IEM to listen to. I mean, this is not an IEM that I would say would be the one to choose if you're looking for ultimate audiophile perfection. But if you want something which is fun, definitely the X300 does fill those shoes. The X600, the other 1+1 they have, is a more relaxed bass presentation, a way more relaxed bass presentation. I would say it's got a bass presentation which is very similar to the X500, with then the mids also having some similarity to the X500. It's then just more the upper mids and treble that are more subdued, so it comes out with a darker sounding sound. The X500, as I said, this is the revised version. It's got a nice organic sound about it. Out of these three, it's the one that I think has got the nicest bass in the sense of, you know, it's not overpowering, it's got a nice extension, goes low, it's clean, it's dynamic, it's got good impact, and then the way that it's been matched with the mids, the upper mids, it's nice. Maybe in the upper treble, you know, you would like a little bit more detail, a little bit more twinklies and sparklies, like I usually say, but overall nothing offensive, and it's, I would say this is the one out of these three that definitely has the most organic, the most old school type of sound. And then finally the X1, the LM version, the Mark IV version, which has got those interchangeable nozzles, and that has got, depending on which nozzle you select, if it's the blue one, which I've got here, it kind of does have a lot of vibes of the Dark Magician, but with just a little bit of an extra bass touch. My particular Dark Magician has been retuned in the bass, so it's got a little bit more bass than the stock Dark Magician used to have, and this is how I like listening to it. Okay, this is how I have it, and I like it like this. Period. Next to that, I've got here the full Explorer, which is the 1+2, and I've got it here because it's got very much the same price as the X500, and there's a surprisingly amount of similarities between these two. The difference here is that there's a bit more extension up top, so a little bit more twinklies and sparkles, a little bit more sensation of air perhaps here on the Explorer than on the X500. But that's the reason why I've got it here, and the Dark Magician I've got it here obviously for the X1. Anyway, I've talked about the prices. I've briefly touched on the sound. I'll go into a little bit more detail, and then I will give you what I think are the two or the three, or how I rank them. Let's put it that way. I'm going to start with the X600 first because yes, okay, fine. The price is an interesting price. It's a nicely built shell. Nice enough cable, I guess. It brings again a decent enough case. So nice tip selection. They've got these tips which look like KB ear tips, which is what I'm actually using. In terms of the sound, as I mentioned, yes, the bass is nice. It's nicely executed. It's got a nice, relaxed kind of bass presentation. It's not overdone. But because of the fact that it loses out a little bit of detail of energy up top, yes, it will be an IEM that will be pleasant for those that are not treble heads or that are not very big into details and technicalities and so on and so forth. But for a person like me that does like that in the right amount, I did find that sometimes it just sounded a little bit too dark, and although dark sounding, you could feel that the BA timbre sometimes was not as pleasant as I would expect, especially for an IEM which does have its BA being so relaxed, at least apparently relaxed. So that's it. The X600, in my opinion, is probably the one that might make the least sense in these IEMs, and there are other IEMs. One that jumps to mind, the Tangzu, the Fudu, which is also a 1+1, does kind of follow the same sort of tuning as here the X600, but it's more well executed. So I would say that this is probably the one that's the least interesting. Okay, let's put this one aside a little bit. Let's talk about the X300. The X300, as I mentioned, is a more, well, it's got, to start with, it's got this unusual shell. Nice. I can't really figure out what the actual material of the shell is, but it's got a nice shell. It's got a nice design of the faceplate. Looks like a dragon. It just looks nice. It might not be to everybody's taste, but it does look nice. Let's me be totally frank about that. As for the sound, very V-shaped, loads of bass. When I show you the graphs in a couple of seconds, you'll understand. Well, a couple of minutes rather, you'll understand. But the interesting thing is, however much bass there is, and then also the great pinna gain and the peak around the 5-6K area and everything, it just comes together very nicely. And when I compare the two of them, these two, the X300 and the 600, the 300 is the one that I ended up liking the most. It's cheaper, even though that's not really the reason for the choice. It just sounds nicer. That's the pure and simple truth. It just sounds nicer. As a 1+1, like as I mentioned, there isn't a lot of, I would say, 1+1s that really are standout. At least not at this price point. There are a couple of KZ options which are interesting and are perhaps a little bit more audiophile or a little bit more correct sounding than the X300 is. I'm not going to deny that, but I mean, like as I said, the truth is that the X300 does look the part. It does bring some nice tips. It does bring a decent cable as well, and it sounds interesting. It just sounds interesting. It's a more colored sound, as I mentioned, but it just does sound cool. That then leaves us obviously here with the two other options here from XSL. As for the X1, I don't think I need to say much. I think for the $60 that it costs, $60-something that it costs, and considering that it's got such a nice driver inside, and that it's got a nice shell, and it also does bring a decent cable and some nice tips and the whole 9 yards. I think that this is definitely one very solid single dynamic that can be bought. Yes, there could be arguments made that Tony, how would you compare this to the Delci? Oh, Tony, how would you compare this to oh my god, I had a blank now. The Sivga, the Q. You know, there isn't really an outright this is better, this is worse. I mean, this is a solid IM. Period. End of story. It's got the adjustable nozzles, which do provide a very different tuning between the blue and the silver one. Very different, very noticeable, and thus it will then agree or satisfy two genres of people or two groups of people were looking for different styles of sound. It's well built. It's got a nice solid shell. It is a nice IEM. It is a solid single DD IEM, you know, and one that can and should be considered seriously when you are actually shopping for something at this price point. With regards to the sound, it's like I said, it's got this vibe, this very much magic that the Dark Magician has. Again, it all depends whether you're a Dark Magician fan or not. But what basically it means, with especially with the blue tipped nozzle, you know, it's got this very nice bass, very nicely executed. It's not overpowering, it's not muddy, it's clean, it's incisive, it resolves well. Vocals, male and female vocals, come across fantastic. I mean, in terms of mids and bass, this is awesome. The upper end, yes, there can be occasions where you would say, I would have liked just a little bit more twinklies here and there, but honestly, this is me really nitpicking, because what it does have is enough and suffice to match the rest of the frequency range. And it does have then the accompanying, let's say, technicalities that I would expect. So soundstage is perfect. It's large enough. Imaging, detailed retrieval is perhaps of the three the one that, you know, is maybe a step behind, and timbre and tonality is probably the one of the four technicalities is maybe a little step above. So timbre and tonality for me on the X1, the LM version, is fine. I really can't fault it. I really can't. Finally, the X500, the 1+4. Again, it's got a nice metal shell. I'm not sure about what BAs have been used inside, but I'm sure the BAs used inside are not, very expensive units. They're not probably any Knolls or anything of the sort. They're probably some Belsings or anything or something of those lines. There's nothing wrong with that. They've been, in my opinion, well implemented. Considering it's 4 BAs, I would have liked maybe just a little bit more detail past 10k, just a little bit more energy up top there. But at the same time, I'm glad that they actually retuned it the way that they've retuned it, because the original version did have more detail, but it came across as, at low volumes, okay, it was fine, but the moment you just pushed it a little bit, it was too intense, too in your face. You noticed the BA timbre. It just was a very fatiguing IEM to listen to. In this current format now, like I said, the BAs are well implemented. Yes, there are occasions where you notice the BA tonality here and there, but what I found that really is where the X500 shines is in stuff like Dire Straits' Fade to Black, or The Look of Luck by Shelby Lynne. So when we're talking about songs which are not too overly complicated, and where the mids are the focus, this thing sounds absolutely phenomenal. It does. It truly does. And in that aspect, it does have a lot of the same traits as the X1. You can feel that there's let's call it a house sound here. Okay, these two definitely, you could listen to them and say, okay, these come from the same stable. While these two perhaps are a departure from, let's call it an XSL house sound. So X500 with the whiteboard tips, which is another recommendation that I will make. Whiteboard tips. Bass is great. It's clean. It's the bass is, in my opinion, as good as the bass of the X1. Honestly, there isn't really much in it. In terms of the mids, upper mids and treble, you'd notice that yes, here that BA timbre can come across sometimes, occasionally, and then that will then maybe affect slightly the timbre and the tonality, but that's me really nitpicking. I think the biggest obstacle, perhaps, that the X500 finds is its price. I mean, 100, and, the moment you cross $100, you start having a lot of other options. And like I said, you have the Explorer. They are full. They cost basically the same thing. And the Explorer is at least for me, and because of music I listen to, and so it's a very competent IEM. And you take the two BAs that they've used there, and you can see that they've implemented those two BAs very nicely. So the mids, the upper mids, the treble are well done, well extended. There's detail, there's everything there. Things like I said, if it's a more complicated track, this isn't as polished, let's put it that way. But hey, look, it is what it is. It's as simple as that. These two IEMs from XSL definitely are the ones that I would consider. Perhaps more so the X1 than the X500. I would have liked to have seen the X500 priced, and I think it could have been done because Fire, the Jade Audio, the JH5 does it. I think they could have priced this at around the lower $90 price bracket. That would have made it a bit more appealing, a little bit more interesting. You would have probably looked at it with slightly different eyes. But still, look, I'm not going to really complain and say no, it's not a good deal. It is a good IEM. It's an IEM that's focused for people that want a more organic type of sound. If you are a fan, for example, of the Panon house sound, you will definitely like this and appreciate this. Okay. If on the other hand you are more of let's say a highly technical, highly detailed type of sound, then this will not be your cup of tea. Again, much like the X1 as well. I mean, if what you want is a high level of detail and technicalities and so on and so forth, the technicalities that are here are adequate, as are on the X500. But this is where that's not an aspect that either one of these two IEMs shine. They shine in being IEMs which are musical above all, and that's what I think is the best word for me to convey what I think of these IEMs. They are about being musical. The technical aspects of the either one are enough or are adequate for what is being presented and what is being laid forth, and that's basically it, guys. There's really not much more that I can say. Okay, I'll show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, welcome now to the graph section. This first graph that we see is the X300, the cheap of the OnePlus ones. As you can see, definite V shape. We're talking about a pinna gain, a bass gain of around 15 dBs into the bass. Pinna gain with an initial peak at about just over 2K of about 10, 11 dBs, and then we have a peak there closer to 5K and then a couple of related peaks and some extension. The interesting is, although this peak here can be problematic because of the some monstrous amounts of bass that you have from behind, it kind of tames it. And you know what? Yes, okay, there's bleed into the mids and it's colored, but it sounds fun, it sounds engaging, and it is a nice IEM to listen to. It's not perfect, but it's a nice, fun IEM to listen to if you're going to go to the gym or something of the sort. This next one that I'm putting is the X600, the other more expensive OnePlus one, and definitely, as you can see, a very nicely executed bass. I mean, we're talking about bass execution here, a bass gain, here of roughly 7 dB, so really nicely done, the bass. I mean, nothing that I can complain there. Again, the initial pin again, fine, but then there's a lot of information missing here in the upper mids and treble in the extension past 10K, so it kind of comes across as a little bit overly dark in my opinion. The next one that I'm going to show you is the X500, the OnePlus 4. The OnePlus 4, as you can see, basically follows very much the same sort of curve that we get from the X600, from about 200 to about, let's say, 4K. They're very similar, but then there's that extra bit of extension on the X500 due to the extra BAs, I'm guessing, that we don't have on the X600, and we got a little bit more bass. But again, everything just sounds pretty balanced. It doesn't sound overly dark or anything of the sort, and it's definitely a nice sounding organic type of IEM. It's like I said, it's got that Panon type of house sound. This area of 5K is subdued, so it's a really nice. If there's anything that I can point as a negative aspect, is yes, a little bit more up top here would have been nice, to give a little bit bigger soundstage sensation. And obviously, like I mentioned as well, the price could have been a little bit more competitive. And then finally, the X1, we have two versions. We have the version, two versions. We have two nozzles, the blue nozzle, and we have the silver nozzle. The difference, as you can see, it's it's plain sight, a little bit less bass on the silver version, with a little bit extra energy at 2 and then at 4. Of the two, I prefer the blue. It sounds absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. This bass, although you might think it's overpowering, no, it isn't. It just sounds clean, detailed. And comparing it to the X500, the 1+4, as you can see, again, the bass of both of them is very similar. A lot of similarities here as well, up to about 4Ks. I mean, this is nothing that's really significant that you will notice. You notice then is that yes, the treble, there is a difference between the two of them, and you notice that the timbre and the tonality of the X500, the 1+4, is a little bit more noticeable, because that BA tonality, that vibe of the BA, you notice it, but it's not detrimental in my opinion to the sound. It's not offensive, nothing of the sort, but you notice it a little bit. And that's it, guys. I mean, like I said, the X1, definitely a phenomenal IEM. I mean, it really is a good, really good sounding IEM. And the X500 is the other option, which I think is worthwhile considering. Again, don't forget, there are a number of other IEMs at this price point. I don't want to now say no, you have to go for these ones because these are the ones, but the X1 without a question is one of the most solid single DD IEMs under $100, even considering all the other very nice options there are out there. And that's it, guys. I don't want to repeat myself. Any questions you might have, any doubts or anything of the sort, please feel free to ask me. You take care now. Bye bye.